Great. Well, welcome. Hello, and we're about to start our Impactful Projects and Planning Micro Training Series session. I'm Jamie Yazdani. In this session, we'll talk about defining your project's deliverables and using them to guide your planning and tasks. So, what exactly are project deliverables? Put simply, deliverables are the concrete or tangible outcomes of a project. So, what is it that the project is going to create, build, design, produce, or accomplish? What will you deliver to your stakeholders by the end of the project? It's been my experience that folks in mission-driven organizations often conflate scope and deliverables and end up not defining either very clearly. Our project scope defines the purpose of the project, why we are undertaking the project, and what is relevant to the project. While deliverables are really about outcomes. What are we going to build during the project and deliver by the end of it? I think the conflation often happens because a project scope or purpose may be to build a particular outcome, but often we are actually delivering on several outcomes under one project scope, or we need to define our deliverables as the project moves forward. So it's important to distinguish between scope and deliverables, even though they are closely related. We want to make a clear distinction so that we can use them differently to drive project success. I've found that our project scope can help us motivate our team and maintain focus on what is most relevant to our project as circumstances change, while our deliverables really drive the actions of our project. So let's dive into that a bit more. How can we use our project deliverables to plan for and execute on our projects more successfully? I've got 3 tips to share today. First, we want to make sure we are clearly defining our deliverables. Again, because scope and deliverables are often conflated, we need to make sure we define each clearly. I've talked about scope and writing effective scope statements in a recent micro training, but let's say we have a scope for a project to develop a new program to address some particular issue affecting our users. This type of scope seems to lay out a deliverable, right? The new program. But what does developing a new program mean? What are we actually going to deliver to our stakeholders during the project? In reality, that scope likely has several deliverables. We might start our project by completing an assessment of program needs that we're going to use to develop a beta program. We're going to get feedback on that beta program and report on before revising and delivering our final program. So our one scope here could have 4 deliverables that we give to our stakeholders that build on each other throughout the project. But that same scope could also lead us to 3 very different deliverables. Perhaps our project will involve program design, implementation, and then assessment. Because stakeholders may interpret a scope differently and thus expect varied outcomes, we want to clearly define our project deliverables. Now, when you define your project deliverables will depend on your project's life cycle. With some projects, our outcomes are very clear at the beginning of the project. In others, we may define them as we move through the project. Regardless, we want to make sure they are clearly defined as early as possible. Scope and deliverables work together to help us set expectations for our project. So let's set those expectations as soon as we are able. Once our deliverables are defined, I find it easier to measure project quality. While we should be considering quality from the start of our project, we also want to be sure we set quality measures for each of our deliverables. In our new program example, once we have developed our scope, we likely start to consider quality. There may be specific criteria our funders have laid out for the new program, or standards or regulations our programs all need to meet. We may also want to measure quality by user input or feedback. But we can more specifically address quality once we have defined our deliverables. With our 4 example deliverables, each might have different quality measures. We might have criteria related to the data we included in our assessment, while for our beta design, there may be key elements that the program must include or internal standards it must meet. We may want to follow industry best practices and getting user feedback on our beta design, and our final program may be measured based on the key elements our funders required and include additional criteria for the program to be successfully implemented. Determining and measuring each deliverables quality helps us better monitor and control our project. Instead of waiting until the end of a project or the final deliverable to measure quality, we can measure throughout a project as we build each deliverable, allowing us to correct mistakes earlier, but also to deliver more impactful projects. Clearly defined deliverables also guide the actions of our projects. Our deliverables are the foundation our project tasks and actions should be built upon. Best practice is to break each deliverable into smaller and smaller elements until you have tasks or actions that you can assign to folks to complete and that you can monitor for progress and quality. For example, we might break our 3rd deliverable, feedback on our beta design, into several actions or tasks. Perhaps we intend to hold a forum to get feedback. So we may want to plan for the forum, then invite key users before holding the forum and creating a report of our findings. Obviously, each of these 4 actions could be broken further and further into smaller elements to get to specific tasks. Once we have broken down our deliverables, we are often in a better position to see exactly which tools or resources we will need to complete our project. With these smaller elements and tasks, we are also able to fully build out our project schedule and assign tasks to our project team. And these task elements also become the progress that we monitor throughout the project and report out to stakeholders or initiators. Working backwards from our deliverables allows us to plan for, execute, and monitor our projects. So those are a few ways we can use deliverables to improve our projects. By clearly defining them and not conflating them with scope, by using them to measure quality, and by breaking them into smaller and smaller elements that guide our actions throughout the project. Deliverables or outcomes are also one of my 5 key elements of impactful project management. Along with scope, stakeholder, schedule, and communications, a focus on deliverables can greatly impact your project's success, especially for mission-driven organizations. Together, these 5 elements can help us plan our projects, create a more collaborative project environment, and strategically deliver successful project outcomes. To learn more, you can download our 5 key elements worksheet. This free download of our simple worksheet is a great start to project planning and is available at yazdaniconsulting.com resources. If you need more support leading projects and teams, visit our project solutions page at yazdaniconsulting.com projects to learn about what we can offer. Great, so I'm happy to take any questions that you have. Please add them in the comments. If I'm not able to answer your question live, I will respond later in the comments. Let's see here. I'll give folks a few more moments to share their questions. You can find all of the ways to contact me at yazdaniconsulting.com contact. There you can schedule a time to talk with me about your project planning and challenges. Let me just check here, give folks another second to add any questions that they may have. And so let's see. All right. So one question, a common question, is how small should you break down your deliverables when creating tasks? This is really going to differ by project, but our task level should match our project team's level of expertise and our level of need for monitoring project progress. So an expert team member may not need tasks broken into very small elements. They will be able to manage larger elements on their own. But we also want to think about how closely we intend to or need to monitor task progress. While we can use milestones and progress check-ins, how often those occur tend to be driven by the size of our tasks. If you have a lot of small tasks, you will need to be monitoring progress on each of those. So generally, don't break your deliverables down any further than your team or reporting requires you to. So another question is about deliverables versus outcomes. Now, I tend to use the term synonymously when talking with mission-driven organizations, but I recognize that some organizations consider outcomes to have a very specific meaning that is often broader than a project. And so, of course, you'll want to use the terminology that best fits your organization. But what we've been talking about today, using the term deliverables, is what the project will create or build or deliver. And so it really is a measure of project success, whatever term you prefer to use. Okay, so feel free to comment or reach out and message me with any additional questions that you have. And thank you for participating in our Impactful Projects and Planning Microtraining series. If you visit yazdaniconsulting.com IPP, you can view all of the sessions in the series and learn about our upcoming trainings. Thank you.